Yeah. Um, what do you have any other activist communities that are helping you or groups that are working alongside with you or
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are some different organizations that have reached out that are not Native organizations. So the United Church of Christ actually just did a entire resolution across all of their branches nationwide to support us in our effort. There have been multiple organizations, like small time organizations, that have come out and said this is wrong. We support you, and it really is just trying to get people conscious and aware and understand. We've had a lot of kind of cross between Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, and their support for realizing that Native Americans are also very much attacked by police, brutality, and die at the hands of police all the time. And so those connections are definitely being made between communities.
yeah, what progress have you guys made? Team logos, maybe even holidays like Columbus Day. Like, has there been any progress so far?
Yeah, so actually, St. Paul just a couple weeks ago decided to get rid of Columbus Day, and that comes on the tail of Minneapolis doing the same thing, Seattle getting rid of it and replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day. I mean, to us, it's like, you're celebrating a guy that actually was sent back to Spain in chains for crimes against humanity. Because, I mean, he killed hundreds of thousands of indigenous people when, he landed in, the Caribbean. And it's appalling to me that we continue to celebrate someone that we know was not a good person in any sense of the word and, actively engaged in genocide. And that's celebrated and, thrown in our faces as we're, as indigenous people. It's like, are you serious? How could you possibly celebrate someone with that kind of history?
Yeah, I never understood that myself. Why do you think there's so much resistance to this changing, like, the mass, the whole country changing the name or a team changing the name? I mean, the whole country changing the name of a holiday, team change the thing to do.
I think that for a lot of people, what I hear the most is tradition. It's about tradition, it's about history and honoring that history. And, to that I say we had a lot of traditions that are no longer okay. Minstrel shows being one of them, slavery being another. I mean, there are long-standing traditions in this country that we decided, hey, you know what, that's not the right thing. Jim Crow laws, those need to go. Dressing up as Black people and, caricaturing them, that needs to go. Doing racist representations of Asian Americans, like back when, what was it, breakfast activities, doing these over-the-top racial stereotypes, it's no longer acceptable. And so when I hear the argument of it's tradition, it's history, we need to honor that history, I think there are certain things in history that we do not need to honor. We don't need to celebrate somebody that committed genocide, for instance. That is, you don't see Germany having a Hitler Day, right? I mean, that's just not something you would ever do, ever. But yet in America, it's like, oh, well, I guess there were indigenous people here, and I guess, we did kind of commit genocide on them, and Christopher Columbus was like the first guy that really kind of like set the high bar for it, but we're going to give him a day, like a federal holiday. That's insane. Yeah. I mean, and Andrew Jackson's on the $20 bill, like they just had this big campaign to change money, and we're going to change the 20, but now have elected to change the $10 bill. And Andrew Jackson is directly responsible for the Trail of Tears. I mean, that was his policy, was Indian removal, killing the Indians, getting them out of like their territories and taking what they had. And that guy, I look at him every day on currency. I mean, it's incredibly insulting and it's incredibly demeaning to the indigenous people that are still here. I mean, that's really the thing. We are still here.
Yeah, and they're not worried about preserving your traditions or histories, just some, ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. I actually talked to a guy just last week that he was a very nice guy, very, very much like supportive of what we were doing, but didn't agree with us. And basically said, well, if we get rid of these mascots and stuff, everyone's going to forget about Native Americans. Everyone's going to forget about your culture. Everyone's going to forget that, Native Americans were here. And I stopped him and I said, you think of what you just said. You just said that Native Americans were here. We are here. We are here. And yes, we still have our culture. Yes, we still have powwows. Yes, we still have ceremony, tradition, language, culture. All of those things are still here. Just because you can't see them, that's, that's your decision, but you should not think that doing a mockery of that is somehow preserving our culture in any way. That is absolutely not the case. That's what keeps us into this kind of static historical, figure. Like, instead of, when I'm here in DC, I get asked all the time, do you live in a teepee? People ask me that because that's what they think. I mean, they really think those things because they just never encountered any representation of a Native American other than this historical riding on the plains, big headdress Indian. And that's what they think Indigenous people are. And that is absolutely not the case. And that's why it really, to me, that's why it matters. It matters because we are modern people and we have modern issues, and we have, poverty and, suicide, and we have lands that, are having serious natural disasters, all these things. But yet I'm going up on Capitol Hill and having to educate congressional members about what Indians are, because they don't think that we're sophisticated people. They think that, we live in teepees and things like that. I mean, that's a serious issue.